At 2:13 in the morning, Daniel Mercer walked into a police station to report himself missing. The desk officer already had his file open. His photo was clipped to the first page, and the report described the exact sentence he had not said yet. 3 days earlier, Daniel had received a voicemail from his own number warning him not to go home. When he ignored it, he found someone wearing his face inside his apartment, living his life better than he ever had. That was only the beginning. 72 hours earlier, Daniel received the voicemail that started everything. Daniel was 34, a maintenance supervisor for a chain of apartment buildings, the kind of man who fixed broken locks, replaced dead smoke detectors, and knew which tenants lied about water damage. He lived alone. He kept his bills paid. He had one sister in Oregon and no enemies he could name without sounding paranoid. The voicemail came in while he was driving home from a leaking boiler call. The caller ID said Daniel Mercer. Same number, same contact photo. His own face smiling back at him from the dashboard screen. The message was 12 seconds long. His own voice said, "Do not go home tonight. They already changed the lock." No scream, no panic, just a tired warning, spoken close to the microphone. Daniel pulled over so fast the truck behind him leaned on the horn. He played the message again, same voice, same slight rasp from an old throat infection, same little swallow before the word, "tonight." He called back. The line said his own number was unavailable. At home, the lock had been changed. Not broken, not picked, changed cleanly. Brand new deadbolt. Same brass finish he would have chosen himself. His key went in halfway and stopped. Through the living room window, he saw his couch, his lamp, his coffee mug on the side table. The television was on. A man stood at the sink with his back turned, rinsing a plate in Daniel's apartment. Same height, same shoulders, same gray work hoodie. Daniel knocked once without thinking. The man turned his head just enough for Daniel to see the side of his face. It was close. Too close. Not a mask, not a twin. A bad copy would have been easier. This face was 95% Daniel, with the last 5% sitting wrong in a way the brain hated. The mouth was a little too calm. The eyes were a little too flat. The scar above the eyebrow was on the wrong side. The man raised one finger to his lips. Then the porch light went out. Daniel spent that night in a motel off Route 6. He pushed a chair under the door handle, turned the TV volume low, and watched the parking lot through a crack in the curtains until sunrise. At 7:04 a.m., his bank app locked him out. At 7:19, his work phone stopped receiving calls. At 8:02, his boss texted him, "Do not come in today. HR will contact you." At 8:05, HR sent a message thanking him for his resignation. Daniel never resigned. He drove to the main office anyway. The receptionist smiled in that careful way people smile when they have already been warned. "Daniel," she said softly, "you can't be here." He asked who had warned her. She looked past him toward the glass conference room. Inside, his boss was talking to a man in the gray hoodie. The man sat with his back to Daniel, signing paperwork with Daniel's name. Daniel noticed the hand first. The man wrote left-handed. Daniel was right-handed. That one detail kept him standing when the room tilted. His boss saw him through the glass and went pale. The man in the hoodie did not turn around. He simply lifted one hand and waved, like he already knew Daniel was there. Security escorted Daniel out by the elbows. That afternoon, his sister called from Oregon. She was crying before he answered. "Why would you send that?" she asked. Daniel pulled into a grocery store parking lot and asked what she meant. She sent him a screenshot. It was a message from his account, written in his style, with the kind of lowercase punctuation he used when he was tired. It said, "I need space. If I call sounding confused, don't engage. I'm dealing with something medical." Under it was a photo of Daniel standing in a bathroom mirror, holding up two fingers like a peace sign. He had not taken that photo. In the photo, the shower curtain was blue. His shower curtain was white. That was when Daniel stopped thinking this was identity theft. Identity theft wants money. This wanted placement. It wanted witnesses trained before Daniel arrived. By the second night, Daniel was sleeping in his van behind a closed car wash. He kept every receipt. He filmed himself saying the date and time. He called 911 twice and hung up both times because he could not explain the problem without sounding exactly like the warning his sister had been told to ignore. At 1:48 a.m., a black sedan pulled into the car wash lot. No headlights. Daniel slid down between the seats and watched through the side mirror. Two people got out. Not police, not private security. Plain jackets, plain shoes. The kind of people who dress to be forgotten. One carried a tablet. The other held up a small device and turned slowly, scanning the lot. Daniel's phone lit up in his hand. New voicemail from Daniel Mercer. He did not play it. The screen transcribed it anyway. Under the van. Now. Daniel moved before he decided. He opened the side door carefully, slid out into the oil-stained darkness, and crawled under the van as the two figures crossed the lot. One pair of shoes stopped inches from his face. A woman's voice said, "He usually runs by now." The man with her answered, "This one is listening." Daniel held his breath until his chest hurt. The scanner made a soft chirp. The woman stepped away. "No signal," she said. The man laughed quietly. "He turned it off too late." Daniel looked at his phone. The screen was black. He had turned it off. He was sure of it. Then, under the van, the phone vibrated once. The woman stopped walking. Daniel placed the phone against the rear tire and pressed until the glass cracked. Then he crushed it under the heel of his boot, slow enough to keep it from making a sharp sound. The two strangers searched the lot for 9 minutes. Daniel counted every second by the pulse in his neck. When they left, they did not look frustrated. That bothered him more than if they had cursed or kicked the van. They looked like people who had lost a minute, not a man. At dawn, Daniel found the third voicemail on the broken phone. The screen was split, but the audio still played through one side of the speaker. His own voice said, "North Precinct, do not give them your wallet. Ask for room 4. If the officer says room 9, leave." Daniel almost laughed. The instruction was insane. It also felt like the only rope he had. He went to a library first and used a public computer. Every search result for his name looked normal for the first page. Then he clicked the county property database. His apartment lease had been updated. Tenant, Daniel Mercer. Emergency contact, Daniel Mercer. Previous tenant, Daniel Mercer. The listed move-in date was 6 years before he was born. He printed the page. The printer jammed twice. When the paper finally came out, the words had changed. No records found. The librarian looked over from the desk and said, "Sir, are you okay?" Daniel folded the blank page and put it in his pocket because pretending to be normal had become survival. That night at 2:13 a.m., he walked into the North Precinct. The lobby smelled like burnt coffee and wet coats. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. A vending machine clicked in the corner, though no one stood near it. Behind the counter, the desk officer had silver hair cut short and a face that gave nothing away. Daniel said, "I need to report a missing person." She asked for the name. He said, "Daniel Mercer." The officer did not blink. She pulled out the beige folder. "Take a seat, Mr. Mercer," she said. "Your statement is already in progress." Daniel stared at the folder. His photo, his name, his report. The first page described the exact moment he was standing in. The second page had a transcript of the voicemail he had not told anyone about. The third page had a diagram of the police station lobby. A red arrow marked where he was standing. Another arrow pointed down the left hallway. Room 9. Daniel remembered the voicemail. Ask for room 4. If the officer says room 9, leave. He asked for room 4. For the first time, the officer's face changed. Not much, just one muscle near the jaw. "Room 4 is closed," she said. Daniel stepped back from the counter. "Then I'll come back later." The front doors locked behind him with a soft electric click. The officer looked down at the folder and turned a page. "You don't come back later," she said. "You run." Daniel ran. Not out. There was no out. The lobby doors would not move, and the glass did not shake when he slammed his shoulder into it. He went left because panic has bad memory. Room 9 waited at the end of the hall with its light on. He passed it. Room 8, room 7, room 6, then room 9 again. Same door, same number, same scratch near the handle. Daniel stopped. The hallway behind him had changed. The lobby was gone. The corridor stretched both ways now, lined with interview rooms, all numbered 9. From one room came his own voice, calm and tired. "Don't open any door with your name on it." Daniel looked down. Every door had a plastic nameplate under the number. Daniel Mercer, Daniel Mercer, Daniel Mercer. Dozens of them. He backed away until his shoulder touched a corkboard. It was covered in missing person flyers. Same face, different ages. Daniel at 22, Daniel at 48. Daniel as a child with a haircut his mother never gave him. Daniel older than his father had lived to be. Every flyer had the same line at the bottom. Last seen entering North Precinct. Daniel tore one down. Behind it was another flyer. Behind that, another. The board was layered with him. At the far end of the hall, a door opened. The copy in the gray hoodie stepped out. He looked cleaner now, better rested. The scar was still on the wrong side. "You made it to the board," the copy said. "That is further than most." Daniel held the flyer like a weapon, which was stupid, but his hands needed something. "What are you?" The copy smiled. It was Daniel's smile after someone explained a joke too late. "A correction." Daniel moved backward. The copy did not rush. That was the worst part. It walked with Daniel's posture, Daniel's tired shoulders, Daniel's old knee stiffness after long drives. It had copied the pain, too. "Your life has too much resistance," the copy said. "Too many choices, too many deviations. We file better versions." Daniel said, "Who is we?" All the doors clicked open at once. Inside each room 9 sat a different Daniel at a metal table. One was crying, one was laughing, one had both hands cuffed to the chair. One stared straight ahead with a blank smile. One whispered into a tape recorder, repeating the same sentence again and again. "My name is Daniel Mercer, and I consent to replacement." Daniel ran the other way. The hallway did not stop him. It let him run until his lungs burned, then delivered him back to the same corkboard. This time, the desk officer stood beneath it with the beige folder in her hands. "You should have gone to room 4, she said. Daniel shouted, "You said it was closed!" "It is," she said. "That is why it is safe." Then she handed him a key, small, brass, bent at the tip. "You have 90 seconds before the corrected version finishes your statement." Daniel did not ask why she was helping. People in nightmares do not help for free, but sometimes they help because they are tired of watching the same thing happen. He found room 4 behind a janitor's closet that had not been there before. The brass key turned once and snapped off in the lock. Room 4 opened into a records office the size of a warehouse. Metal shelves rose higher than the ceiling should allow. Boxes lined every aisle. Each box had a name, a date, and a status. Most statuses said replaced. Some said pending. A few said returned. Daniel found the M section because the room seemed to guide him there. Mercer took up an entire row. Daniel Mercer, apartment 3B. Daniel Mercer, Route 6 Motel. Daniel Mercer, North Precinct. Daniel Mercer, corrected. Daniel pulled the corrected box from the shelf and opened it. Inside were the things that had already been taken from him. A spare key, his work badge, a copy of his sister's house key, his bank card, his dental records, 3 photographs from years he remembered differently, and a small glass vial filled with something that looked like fog. Under the vial was a cassette tape. The label said, "Voice, Original." Daniel picked it up and heard his own mouth go dry. Far away, through the shelves, the copy called his name. Not loud, not angry, like a man looking for a tool he had misplaced. Daniel grabbed the tape and ran deeper into the records office. At the back, he found a row of payphones mounted to the wall. None had cords. Each receiver hung neatly in place anyway. One phone rang. Daniel answered. His own voice said, "Good, you found the tape. Now listen carefully. There is no outside. There is only paperwork. Burn the file, not the body." The line went dead. Daniel looked at the shelves. Sprinklers, security cameras, no windows. Then he smelled cigarette smoke. The desk officer stepped out from the next aisle with a metal trash can and a lighter in her hand. "I was returned," she said. "That is why I can still bend rules." Daniel did not know what that meant. He did not need to. They found the main file in a locked drawer labeled Active Corrections. His name was in the top slot. The copy arrived as Daniel opened it. For a second, both men stared at each other over the drawer. Same face, same eyes, same fear almost. The copy said, You will ruin both of us." Daniel said, "Good." He dropped the file into the trash can. The desk officer lit the corner. Paper burns slower than people think. It curls first. It browns. It fights to remain readable. Daniel watched his signature blacken, then the lease, then the medical note that said he was unstable, then the pre-written statement saying he consented to replacement. The copy screamed when the last page caught. Not in pain, in loss. Every room 9 door slammed shut at once. The warehouse lights went out row by row. Daniel woke on the sidewalk outside the North Precinct at sunrise. His van was parked across the street. His wallet was in his pocket. His phone was whole. For one clean second, he believed it was over. Then his sister called. He answered and said her name. She started crying. "Where have you been?" she asked. "The police said they found your van empty 3 weeks ago." Daniel turned toward the precinct. The building was boarded up. Not closed for the morning, abandoned. Old plywood covered the doors. A faded notice on the entrance said the North Precinct had been shut down in 1998 after an electrical fire destroyed its records department. His phone buzzed with a voicemail. No caller ID. Daniel let it play. The voice was not his this time. It was the desk officer. She sounded very far away. "Returned does not mean free, Mr. Mercer. It means the file rejected the correction. Keep your paperwork close." Daniel looked down. In his hand was the missing person flyer he had torn from the corkboard. The photo showed his face. The date underneath was tomorrow, and at the bottom, in small black letters, it said, "Last seen entering North Precinct." Daniel turned away from the boarded-up station and walked toward his van. Across the street, in the driver's seat, someone in a gray hoodie was already waiting. The scar was on the correct side now, and the man smiled like he had finally learned the part.